aggro. But this week... Alright guys, so we're into round 2. Tonight's Friday Night Standard event from Lost Legion. We're already underway. As we see on the left, Mono Black Devotion at the hands of Brian Grose, resolving a turn 1 Thoughtseize, nabbing a Detention Sphere against Brandon Gibbs, who is playing Maze's End. It's a Bant deck that uses the aforementioned Maze's End to win. It is basically a Turbo Fog deck that plays, I think, 12 copies of Fog in various forms, along with cards like Gate Creep Refine, which help him not only find additional gates, but also clog up the ground. The very strong card Urban Evolution, which helps him not only ramp mana, but also get some card advantage. And then the as expected removal suite of Supreme Verdict and Detention Sphere. So Brian, with a turn 2 Pack Rat, goes ahead and makes a token, serves in for 2 here. Now Pack Rat obviously not as good against the Supreme Verdict deck as it is against a lot of decks in Standard, but still, turn 2 Pack Rat, something to not take lightly. So a Gate Creep Refine out of Brandon helps him to find yet another gate, already up to 3 individual gates. Of course, Maze's End, you need to have 10 of them in order to win. So Brian plays a Desecration Demon. Brandon's going to go ahead and chump out one of the Pack Rats and drop down to 16. Let's see if Brandon has an untapped mana source here and a Supreme Verdict to really punish Brian for running out that Desecration Demon. A lot of times against these, he may be unfamiliar with the Maze's End archetype, but a lot of times against these decks with Supreme Verdict, you just want to play that Pack Rat and keep pitching cards until they can answer it. You don't want to feed even further into the Supreme Verdict if you can avoid it. But Brandon obviously either doesn't have Supreme Verdict or doesn't have the 4th untapped land. Allows Brian to untap. He's going to discard a swamp, make another Pack Rat token. He's going to serve in here, but I smell a Fog coming from Brandon. It would be for 12 if he doesn't Fog here. Seems like you have to. No, he doesn't have a Fog, so he's going to go all the way down to 4. Yep, and he does go down to 4, so he's going to untap here. No, he has Urban Evolution in his hand. It's the only card I can make out, as he does draw a Rakdos Guild Gate, but Urban Evolution not where you want to be when you are well and truly behind. There is a Dimir Guild Gate played, so Brandon drawing a lot of excuse me, drawing a lot of gates naturally here. Up to 6 unique copies of gates in his hand. Brian's going to discard a Devour Flesh. All these removal spells basically useless against Brandon. And this time we have a Fog, and I believe this one is the one that gains life equal to the number of creatures on board. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is going to put him back up to 9, but more importantly, going to prevent the lethal combat damage. And he draws a Supreme Verdict. So we're going to play that Rakdos Guild Gate. We do have the correct mana, 2 whites and a blue, to play the Verdict. So we're going to clear out the board here. And Brandon may have stabilized here at 9. We know if Brian doesn't put another threat on his board, Brandon's going to be able to untap, play Urban Evolution, and get ahead pretty well here. So Brian does have a follow-up Night Veil Spectre, which at least proposes some clock, but 5 turns at best against a deck that is constantly playing Fog effects. So Brandon deciding here if he wants to cast Evolution or not, and he does not, so he's leaving up some kind of instant speed interaction. And there is a Druid's Deliverance. the fog variant that prevents damage and populates. Obviously, Brandon's not populating anything. But it still prevents damage, so you still got to play it, and he's going to follow up with another Desecration Demon. At this point, you definitely want to play the demon out, as it shortens the clock tremendously. And Brandon's deck, not the kind of deck that can take advantage of the combat trigger to tap down the demon, as I do not believe there's a single creature in Brandon's deck. So we're tapping 4 mana here, 5 mana here. Is this the evolution turn? It is, so we're going to be able to play an extra land here, and we are going to draw 3 cards. Explore and Divination tacked onto the same card. Brandon draws 3, cannot find an answer. And he's just scooping up. He was not dead that turn. I don't know exactly why he chose to scoop. He's only facing down 8 damage, it looked like, from the Spectre and the Desecration Demon, but apparently he saw the writing on the wall. We'll never know, but he did exercise his right to scoop. Follow button. Alright guys, into the second game here with Brandon Gibbs and his Bant Mazes In deck. On the play, both players keeping 7 after sideboarding. Then Brian Grose leading off with a turn 1 Scry land. No blue cards in his deck, just simply getting some value off of the ability to scry. So no turn 2 pack rat, so this game will play out a lot differently than the first game. Obviously, the less pressure Brian puts on Brandon, the longer this game will likely go, and the better situation Gibbs will be in. So there's a Lifebane zombie. It's not going to hit anything, but you do effectively get a 3/1 Intimidate with Peak, revealing a hand full of fogs. And not much else. So Brandon plays his 4th unique Guildgate. We see in his hand a D-Sphere, a couple Druid's Deliverance, I believe. I think he has a basic island in his hand as well. And there's a Thoughtseize, so Brandon choosing not to play the D-Sphere on the Lifebane zombie. And the Thoughtseize takes it out of his hand there, so we'll see if that comes back to bite him. And then Brian follows up with a Night Veil Spectre. So the clock online. Let's see how Brandon's deck deals with it. We know he has multiple fogs in his hand. I also see a Gatecreeper Vine, which will not only help him. At this point, it doesn't clog up anything, as the both of Brian's creatures have evasion, but it will help him draw another crucial gate. So Brandon just playing a copy of Maze's End, so he can start getting his card value engine online. And he's going to play a Gatecreeper Vine and search out another unique Guildgate. Probably wants one that taps for green mana. So Brandon content to take at least 5 here. We do in fact get the Golgari Guildgate, as green is the most, well, I don't know if any of them is most important, but all the fogs are mostly green and white. And if Brandon's going to cast 2 spells in one turn, one of them is for sure going to be green. There's an Underworld Connections on Brian's Temple of Deceit. That's going to help him grind out some card advantage in this very grindy match. He's just going to serve in here, and Brandon has no shenanigans. And the Spectre reveal is a Guild Gate, the Gruul Guild Gate. So these Spectre reveals, not inconsequential at all, as Brandon's deck only plays a finite number of gates. And, so we're tapping, we're playing our Guild Gate here tapped, obviously, and then tapping out for something else here. 3 mana for a Detention Sphere on the Nightveil Spectre. Then serve back in, so Brandon doesn't want to lose any more of his cards potentially to the Spectre trigger. So Brian serves in with this 3/1 Intimidate Lifebane Zombie, dropping Brandon down to 9. And more importantly, getting Brandon to a point where a Gray Merchant will be enough to kill him. So we add another Underworld connection, so our Devotion at 6 right now. So next turn an attack plus a Gray Merchant trigger are going to be enough to take Brandon out. And as I would have to check the wording on the fogs, but I'm pretty sure they do not interact with loss of life. So Brandon just plays another Mazes End tapped, and then passes the turn back here. Can't make out many cards in Brian's hand. I think he has another Mutavault and another Nightveil Spectre. So it looks like we're going to fog here. We are going to in fact cast Druid's Deliverance to prevent that damage, so we're not dead to a Gary here. And I think I can't tell if Brian has a Gray Merchant in his hand or if he has a Hero's Downfall. So Brandon end of turn activating Mazes End, putting an Izzet Guild Gate into play, and bouncing the aforenamed Mazes End. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 Guild Gates in play. So let's see what Brandon's deck is going to serve up here. Activating the Guild Gate. Main at sorcery speed here, it seems interesting. So doing that during his main phase and then just passing the turn back, Brian's going to draw a card off Underworld Connections. So of course the question now is the chat indicating, and as we're all somewhat wondering, especially in the sideboarder games where Pithing Needle is definitely cause for concern from the Mazes End deck, are we going to see Crackling Perimeter as an alternate win condition out of Brandon's deck? Tap a gate to deal 1 damage to something. And there is a Gray Merchant. Is that going to be enough? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Alright, so we're not going to prevent the damage from the Gray Merchant, but we are going to cast the White Fog, whose names I cannot remember at this point, just to gain enough life so that we don't die. He's going to gain 1, 2, 3, 4. He's going to gain 4 life from 9, go up to 13, then lose from the devotion, surviving at exactly 1 here. So he survived what would have otherwise been a lethal Gray Merchant trigger at 1 life. So let's see if he can find a way out of this. So Supreme Verdict clears everything out here. We still got a Mutavault on board, so we make sure Brandon sees that. He does have both white and green open, so he can cast a fog here to prevent this otherwise lethal attack from the Mutavault. Brian miracling a swamp, probably unwise to keep playing out these swamps if you are the Pack Rat deck, but you do what you gotta do. So there's a whip of Erebos. Do we have enough mana to whip back a Gray Merchant here? Yes, we do. So we have 4 mana to play it, 4 mana to activate it, get back the Gray Merchant, and I believe the devotion count was 8 with 2 connections, a whip, and the Gray Merchant itself. So bringing this deck pretty fun, pretty close to winning that one, but unfortunately not a good matchup against the Gray Merchant deck, which is why you play the competitive decks 3 weeks out of the month and load up the Mazes in the combo deck just 1 week when nobody's here to play. So that's what happens. So I hope you enjoyed at least seeing